How's she going, folks? It's your host, Levi.
And it's your other host, John.
And welcome to Oh For Heaven's Sake. Today, got a very special guest, obviously. Former NDSU football player, four-time FCS college football champion, the current record holder for tackles for loss and tied for sacks in NDSU history, Buck Buchanan Award winner and 5-year NFL veteran, Kyle Emanuel. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate that introduction.
Oh, yeah, we always make sure we have the best introductions for our guests here.
So today we got some fun questions, kind of talking about starting a little bit in high school, all the way through kind of like the football career, and then a little bit post-football, just to get a little story and
testing my memory, I'm sure.
Yeah, test your memory.
Yeah, can you believe it's been, well, you guys probably, 10 years since this fall will be since I played at NDSU, which is kind of wild, but here we are.
So
we're still going, and that's the most important.
That's right.
First of all, we always have to take a sip of our drinks to start.
Yep.
All right.
Got to crack the drinks. Me and Levi both got a bubbler, and, we gave our guest a nice fresh water.
As I told you guys, I had the bubbler before I got here, so yeah, I went just the boring H2O this time around.
The real question is, what kind of bubblers you have?
Ooh. So I'm one of those people. I'm not too picky when it comes to the flavors. I believe it was like a kiwi, watermelon, lime, something along those lines. I don't know the flavors very well.
Very flavorful.
It was
all
good.
Sorts of options. Yeah, John's got the watermelon. I got the tropical. Tropical one's my favorite. So, not a huge bubbler guy, but I've been coming around lately.
Yeah, we're big Celsius drinkers.
Anything with caffeine, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right. Coming from Nebraska, being a multi-sport athlete, how much would you say that kind of helped you on the football field?
Yeah, good question. I think it helped me tremendously. I don't know if this is where you're going with this question, but I know a little bit about today's day and age. A lot of kids are trying to specialize, right? And they're trying to, if I'm a baseball player, that's all I'm going to do. And to me, that was, when I was growing up, that wasn't an option. It was. I grew up in a town of 6,000 people. My graduating class was about 100. You played everything, and I liked it. One, you don't burn out. I loved a lot of sports. I mean, I know football was the one that eventually became my path, but I loved playing basketball. Actually, basketball was probably my favorite sport growing up. Loved playing baseball in the summers. I did soccer. I did track. So you don't get burned out, and I think it helps you become a more well-rounded athlete, at least in my mind. You get exposed to some different movements, some different things, just training that you don't get if you just play one sport the entire time. So it's hard to know if I don't know many people that specialize in football. Most football players, if you look at the draft now, guys that go in the first round, typically all of them played at least one other sport. But I got to imagine and even just being a younger kid at the time, like staying out of trouble, you're doing the right thing, you're always training, staying in sports and playing multiple, I think was key for me. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I believe Ance was talking about how it's like over 90% of the players in the football team last year when he was coaching the team was multi-sport athletes. So I feel like that's kind of something they look into, like how competitive you are, what other sports you play.
Yeah, Levi's just a multi-injury athlete.
Specialty right there. So how was redshirting your first year knowing that you couldn't really help the team out a ton? And how much did it help you grow as a player?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess when I got to college, it was whirlwind. And I'm actually so thankful, so grateful that I redshirted, because I don't know if I would have been ready to play, to be honest with you. Just the entire transition, and it sounds funny now, but again, coming from a small town, I had no idea what to expect from a Division I program. I didn't know what football was like. Funny story, I brought graduation party card, after my graduation party, I brought thank you cards with me because I hadn't finished them, thinking, during camp I'll have some time, I'll have some downtime. No, absolutely not. I didn't have any time to do anything. So it was such a transition going into college, and so I think just kind of remind me again what else you wanted me to touch on there.
So
redshirting. Sorry.
Yeah, redshirting.
So going off of all that, I don't think I would have been ready to play had I not redshirted, just because of that transition. You're right, it was tough because of the fact that you're not on the field, you're not playing. But for me to adjust to the college game, to the speed of the game, to being a student, I think it was absolutely necessary. And you still help the team out in certain ways. I mean, anyone that's played at the next level or played college football, played in the NFL, you know how important the scout team is. So there are small ways that you can still help the team, well, without a doubt. But I think for me, redshirting was I don't want to say it was big for my success. Who knows if I would have just played right away? But obviously, my best year was my senior year. So, it definitely helped from that standpoint.
Well, you were saying that, with fall camp, you're pretty busy and all that, and you're kind of acclimating to that. But you still happen to make honor roll every year. How'd you do it? How'd you balance that?
It's funny. I question that sometimes now, and just thinking of my schedule, and you kind of adapt. You become an adult, and your schedule changes. To me, it was you were forced to prioritize your time and to have discipline and time management, and so you didn't really have a choice. And for me, school was always something. I looked at school like I did sports, and it wasn't necessarily that I loved homework and I loved studying or things like that, but it was just like, well, this is another opportunity to compete, and if I can do better at something, I'm going to try and do that. And so that's the way I kind of approached academics. And yeah, it was tough. I mean, especially you think about your lifting, you have to, we had a certain amount of meals that we were required to go to every single week. You throw practice on top of that, and you have group projects, and you have to try and find times to fit, to meet up as a group with other students that they have things going on. It was a lot. It's just, early mornings, late nights, and you kind of grind through it.
Mm-hmm. And energy drinks were 100% involved.
Actually, it's funny, not to go off topic here, but I wasn't a big caffeine guy until probably got into the NFL, probably. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I had some along the way, but not a ton.
Once you got to the big leagues, you had to start, getting some energy
well,
in.
that's changed now, but.
So you were talking about kind of being forced to balance your day. What was your average day in during the football season?
Well, actually, let me start in the summer, because those were the most interesting days, and then I'll get to the football. So summer, it was wake up at 5 a.m., lift at 5:30, and then I had a job. I had a different job all 4 years. So then you go straight from lift, work till about 4 o'clock, then try and find something to eat, go and run at 6 p.m., and then once again, try and find something to eat. And the reason I keep bringing that up is because we didn't have the dining center. I think they might now at this point. College athletics has changed so much, but we didn't then. So then once again, try and find something to eat, go to bed, and do it all over again. So that was the summers. The summers were probably, outside of fall camp, that was the biggest grind. I'd say during the season, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was easier in terms of you had that regimented every single week. You knew exactly what you were getting from practice. You had your class schedule. But yeah, it was, depending on the day, it was class that could be as early as 8 a.m. You had to lift twice a week, and then it was typically you were in the meeting room by, I want to say 2:30, something like that. Practice around 4, and then you're done at 6 o'clock. Then you're trying to find some time to get your academics and your homework done.
Yeah.
So 4 jobs, each one new every year.
Diversifying.
Yeah,
the portfolio.
yeah. I'm trying to think what it started out. I was mowing lawns for Fargo Parks. I had 2 different. I was a construction management major, so I had 2 different internships with 2 different companies, 2 separate summers, and then I delivered lumber one summer as well.
You just felt like being a lumberjack.
That's like a workout in itself.
Kind of just took what you could get.
So. Important thing is, what would you say was your favorite?
Well, the most beneficial was the internships for my major. I'm actually I actually mowed lawns in high school as well in the summers. I don't mind sitting on a mower. I mean, if you get a nice mower, you could just sit there and cut grass. Honestly, especially after a workout, something like that, it wasn't the worst job in the world.
So you're saying you're still a big mower to this day?
Got to make sure those lines are nice and straight.
I'm a homeowner now, and the stereotypical, yes, I like to try and keep my lawn as nice as possible. I'm failing a little bit, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yep. He's trimming it with the scissors. Making sure it's all even length.
I feel like that's a pretty common job, mowing lawns. I know some people that are football players in NDSU that actually mow lawns that used to go to Davies. So I think I guess it just everybody does it. I'm not sure.
Well, for
why,
Fargo
but
Parks,
it's
you're kind of like
something fun.
on your own, right? You kind of just do your own thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't just mowing lawns, doing a little bit of everything. I mean, we would, put the chalk down for softball games, put the lines down, trimming. It was various. It wasn't just mowing lawns, but mowing lawns was that was the best day for sure.
Would you say you have some, what are your stories throughout your career at NDSU?
Oh, man.
Some key memories that you look back on and you're like, oh, boy.
You just casually won 4 championships in a row.
Yeah, honestly, there's too many to remember. I mean,
suffering from
success. Good and bad. Obviously, a lot on the field, a lot off the field. Some you don't remember off the field for various reasons. Some you just don't want to share. It was, I start typically like this story, like when I got to that first fall camp, kind of like I was just alluding to, like wondering, and this is kind of a bad story, not necessarily a bad story, but it was just that shock factor of literally having no idea what I was doing or what I was getting into. The fact that, we were waking up at 6, 7 a.m. and then it was nonstop. Like there was no break, especially as a freshman. Freshmen had to go to academic meetings, so everyone else got a 2-hour break in the afternoon. Nope, freshman, you're going to academic meetings. There was no time for a nap, and then you're getting back to your dorm, which is unair conditioned at 10 p.m. and then waking up and doing it all over again, and just kind of like looking myself in the mirror, like what did I get myself into? But also understanding the older I got, like that's what it took to be great, to win national championships. There's stories from the weight room with Coach Kramer. Obviously, I think everyone, if you interviewed anyone that played at NDSU, they'd probably have a story for you. I remember one time it was like, you guys know Fargo winters. It was probably in the negative 20 range, negative 10. And I don't remember why, but he thought we were sluggish starting the lift. So he just sent everyone, take your shirt off, go outside and run a lap around the old BSA. I think someone ended up slipping on the ice that day. They were fine. No worries there. On the field, like, I think about Kansas State and playing that game against, it was like Bill Snyder Stadium was just opened up. They had won the Big 12 championship the year before. It was, speaking of, heat, it was 100 degrees, 95 degrees, whatever it was, and going in there and winning. There's a lot. There's a lot of stories, and we could probably sit here for a couple hours, and I could come up with some more. But it was the best, 4.5, 5 years of my life. It was hard. Don't get me wrong. There was, with every good story, there's a story of how much work it took to get to that point. But it was better for going through it for sure.
Happen to have any funny, at least one funny dorm story that you can remember?
Dorm story, I think we were pretty tame for the most part in the dorms. I don't remember getting in too much trouble in the dorms. It's not really a funny story, but like one guy who became one of my best friends was the kicker on the team, Adam Keller. Now, typically kickers, specialists are, I don't want to say they're like shunned to the side, but it's just like they're their own, breed, right? Like they don't go through the same lifts as you. They don't do the same thing at practice. Like they have their own, I don't want to say they have their own schedule, but it's just different. And he was just that guy. He just would always show up. He was a couple floors below us. He would just always show up, come hang out with in our dorm. Carlton Littlejohn was my suite mate, and we became best friends that way. I don't even know how to describe it. We ended up rooming together every single year after that. So the dorms, honestly though, the dorms were a great time. As a freshman, like you don't think that, like, but just it's the only time really you're like surrounded by a lot of other people that are in the same walk of life as you. They're going through the same things. Obviously, non-athletes are going through something a little bit different, but not a phenomenal dorm experience. Old Severinson, I think 507 was my old room, if I still remember that correctly.
Ooh. So if you're listening and you're in 507.
Yep.
No. Adam Keller. I haven't heard that name in a while. What a kicker.
4 toes on his kicking foot.
Yep,
I don't know if
that's
you
the
remember
one thing
that
I
one.
remember.
Yeah, that's usually what everyone remembers him for. He's a pretty good kicker in his own right, but yes, he only had 4 toes.
Interesting. Next question. How did it feel to get drafted in the NFL? 5th round pick, Chargers.
Yeah, it's something I watched the draft a ton as a little kid. I don't want to. I can't sit here and lie and say like that was the ultimate goal and that was a dream. Obviously, you'd love for it to happen, but like it just seemed so far fetched to me coming from a small town, and we were okay at football, and like, I mean, just even playing at the college level seemed like something that was like a far off dream. But I still remember getting a couple calls from agents when I was a senior, and just being like, wow, this is a possibility to do. And then I got the call in my parents' house in my hometown at a party afterwards. That moment, I remember talking to a bunch, GM scouts that would call and be like, you got to enjoy this moment because it'll never happen again, and there's nothing like it. And I think that's the best way to describe it. There's nothing like it. You understand that once your name gets called, a lot of hard work comes after that. But in that moment, to get that call, to see a California number show up on my phone and realize like this is it, it's pretty special to say the least.
Jumping back a little bit, I watched the draft obviously, I'm huge into football, and I love like the data side and stuff. But like when I watch the NFL Combine, I feel like that's like got to be the most nerve-wracking thing ever. Like how was that? Like competing against everybody, like you got to beat these guys to be drafted higher, or just like what if you get injured? I feel like there's a lot of like nerves going on during the combine.
Yeah, the way it was described to me was like it's the biggest and best job interview there is. But to me, I guess one way to kind of combat the nerves of the combine and everything is like that's just one part of the process. There's so much more to it, and realistically, what you put on tape, and this is what I tell people to this day, like what you put on tape and what you did in your college career, I don't know if it always matters more, but it should matter more. Like that's you actually playing the game, right? The combine is supposed to validate what they already think about you. Like they probably already have a guess about what you're going to run your 40 and how quick you can move side to side. You might put up some eye-popping numbers, and they might, okay, maybe we didn't evaluate them correctly on the field. But to me, it was going out there and trying to validate. But you're right, it was nerve-wracking. Story from that, like when you do the weigh-ins, I think you did the weigh-ins right before the bench press, and you have to go out in your underwear in front of like the seated arena, not very big, but like the seated arena, and they like walk up there and they call out your name and maybe your position or whatever, and then they yell at your weight, and you kind of feel like a piece of cattle, right? Like up for auction. Like it was kind of weird, to say the least. And nerve-wracking for sure, all the different events. But I kind of just took it as an opportunity. Like I felt blessed to get there, get that invite, and have an opportunity. Especially for me, potentially switching positions, only playing defensive line in college, and then am I going to be a linebacker? Am I going to be something else? Like it gave me an opportunity to show I could do more than just rush the passer, which is what I did in college.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's time to acknowledge some sponsors. Mm-hmm. Get a couple out of the way, of course. Mahana Fresh, we just had it today.
We did.
Oh, good food. Cooper Walla, do you know him?
Oh, yeah. Of course I know Coop. Yeah.
What a guy. It's, you know what? I'm going to let you deliver your line.
Eat fresh, feel fresh, refresh. Mahana Fresh.
It's kind of like a Subway style for healthy food. You kind of just go down the line. Mahana Mac. Nothing is better than Mahana Mac, and I'll stand by that. John, you got the next one.
Too as well, I would like to give a quick thank you to DJ Colter Agencies. He focuses on the 5 major points of insurance, which are, Levi?
Home, auto, farm, business, and life.
So if you're looking for any of those, stop down DJ Colter Agencies, and he'll give you a free personalized quote.
All right. MPF, where we got the location, got the stew, and obviously, great lift. I know you've lifted here sometimes.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on MPF? This is a testimonial here.
I love MPF. I love the melt. I love the fact that you don't have to. So it's funny. One of the things once you're done playing is like you miss the like structure, just being able to walk in and like someone has a lift for you, not having to think about it. Mm-hmm. And so I love the melt, coming in, get some cardio, get your lift in. So yeah, it's been phenomenal ever since. Cole and Brad merged, obviously, coming over here a couple times. I will say I was absent for a while. I was training for a marathon. So I got away from the weights a little bit, but now we're back at it.
He's back at it, and he's going to get huge. And then one last thank you to Finley On The Roof. If you're looking for anyone to hang up your Christmas lights, big or small projects, he is your guy. Give him a call and he will give you a free quote. And the thing is professional team and gets done right and quick.
All right. Back to the serious conversation here. What would you say is the biggest difference between college and the NFL?
So I got that question a lot. I mean, I guess for me personally, I had to switch positions, right? So there was already immediately there was a learning curve. And again, this isn't totally answering your question, but for me, I had to change from only worrying about offensive line and tight ends and fronts and where's my run fit as a defensive lineman rushing the passer to learning about coverage. I didn't know anything. I mean, you think you know everything when you're playing football, and then you get exposed to something new, and you're like, oh, this is a whole different world. So I started playing linebacker, dropping into coverage a little bit, learning all the different rules that go with quarters coverage and playing, quarter, half, and you have this side is man, this side is zone, and you got to know when you're passing things off and, cover two and running the middle. It was just so much that was eye-opening to me once I had to start learning a little bit more about coverage from the linebacker position. But on the field, people always want to talk about the speed. Does the speed of the game change? And yes, it does a little bit, without a doubt. To me, the biggest difference, which should be obvious, but the talent across the board. I mean, and you play against NFL guys at the FCS, no doubt. There's guys that end up playing in the NFL. I practiced against them every day, Billy Turner and Joe Haig. I mean, I played against offensive tackles that played in the NFL and had long careers every single day, but it's across the board. Special teams, I played a lot of special teams, and the guys that are running down on special teams were, I don't know, they might have been third team All-Americans. They were all these are at the Power 5 level. These are legit, really good athletes, really good football players running down on kickoff that you have to try and block, or vice versa if you're running down. So that was kind of eye-opening. And then the intensity of practices, I think a lot of people just assume you go up a level, the practices are so much harder, they're longer, and that not necessarily the case. I would say we actually had more reps in college just because you have more people. But to me, it was the intensity and the fact that guys are fighting for a job. I mean, they're literally fighting to feed their families if they got kids at home. It didn't matter if it was a walkthrough, if it was just a helmets practice, if it was full pads, every single day was intense because there's people on the practice squad that that's their only opportunity to show the coaching staff what they can do. So I'd say the intensity of the practice, and then just the immense talent across the board from their best player down to the guy that only plays special teams. There was dudes at every single level.
Do you still talk to Billy Turner often, or Joe Haig, any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just talked to Billy not that long ago. I know he was in town. I've kept in touch with about as many guys as you can. It's funny because there's guys that, so obviously your best friends that you played with. I mean, I got married 2 years ago, and I had 3 or 4 or 5 former Bison players in my wedding party. But then there's the guys that you don't see as much, maybe you don't talk to as much, but as soon as you do see them, there's that instant brotherhood, right? Because what you went through together. Fortunately for us, the success that you had together, how hard it was, how hard you worked, everything that you did together, and you won championships together. There's just that instant bond that just never goes away.
Ooh, this is a good question. Who would you say the toughest players you ever played against? Did anybody just absolutely just pancake you to the ground?
Oh yeah, that's definitely happened. I'm trying to think off the top of my head when. Typically it was on a kickoff return or something. Well, the two guys I mentioned, I mean, when I think of college, obviously there was a lot of really good players I played against in a game, but I mean, practice wise, I had my work cut out for me going against the guys I just mentioned, and Billy and Joe. I kind of anticipated this question because I do get asked it a lot. Typically it's people, who's the hardest guy to tackle? And my answer is everyone. They're all NFL running backs. No one was easy to tackle, and they could be different in their own way, right? It might be a bigger guy that's hard to bring down. It might be a shiftier guy that you just can't get your hands on. The one that always comes to mind for me, and because most people will know who he is Marshawn Lynch. So he played for the Raiders. I think the last 2 years I was with the Chargers. And you heard about him, right? And you've seen him play But there was a couple times I remember just like having him wrapped up at the ankle, and I swear, I don't know if this actually happened, but I swear he like drugged me with me hanging onto his ankle, and he drugged me with just his foot. And I'm like, I don't know how you can physically do that. But it seemed like he found a way. So the few times that I did get in on a tackle with him, I don't know why he always stands out in my mind.
Yeah. What a guy. Okay. This one might be a little tough. You know, he's got a lot of people you've played with. Who would you say are like your favorite players you've played with throughout your career?
Well, it depends. I guess it depends who's watching this, and then maybe they'll get a shout out. I think I've shouted out Adam and Carlton enough. I mean, I don't want to give you a non-answer, but it's honestly hard to pick. Like, I obviously have my best friends, or guys that I became closest with because of the position that I played, or for whatever reason. I mean, like I said, one of my best friends was the kicker. You guys know Cole, Jarek. Like, we were defensive ends together for 4 years. Like, became really close with him and Mike Hardy. Honestly, the list goes on, and I'm gonna forget a million people. I loved playing. I'm just gonna name drop him because why not? Like, Phillip Rivers was a great guy to play with. I think he gets people don't know what to think about him because they see him on the field and they see that he's a huge trash talker, right? Talks the most trash maybe ever in NFL history. But he never swore. Not once did I ever hear him say a curse word, not one time. He was a storyteller. I know you guys are looking for, like, if you had him on your, like, he could tell stories, and he was the guy that, like, everyone would gather around on the plane and they wanted to hear a story from Phillip Rivers. So he was awesome to play with. So there's too many to count. Honestly, I was fortunate to play with a lot of guys that they were good human beings, good men, and great football players, and they embraced the grind of everything that came with it. So even if they weren't my best friend per se, like, I've played with a lot of good guys.
Yeah, all of them had an important role.
100%. Yeah, no doubt.
So obviously injuries kind of factored into, like, why you decided to retire, but, like, was that, like, the main reason, or, like, what were, like, the main points of, like, just hanging up the cleats?
Calling her quits.
Right. Yeah, hard decision. So I obviously called it quits and then went back. But after my 4th year, I just remember I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was still training, potentially going back and playing for that 5th year. And I remember doing some different agility things, and, like, my knees were just aching. I had a number of concussions, and it was just like I had played so much football. I mean, people think, well, you only played 4 years in the NFL, but, like, yeah, you got to count the other 5 that I played at NDSU, and the fact that we played until January every single year that I was there. It just played so much football, and I think, yes, the injuries, no doubt, were a huge part of it. I would say probably at least 50%, maybe 51%. But it was a little bit of burnout. Mentally, I always told myself, like, I'm only gonna do something if I'm gonna give 100% to it. Like, I can't not give 100%. I'm not gonna go to a franchise and not give them my best. And I didn't know if I was in a place to do that. So you factor that in with some injuries, and decided to call it quits. And then, of course, I say all that, and then you get away from the game for a year, which I did, and you start to miss it. Like, football, being an athlete was like, it's kind of my identity a little bit, right? Like, that's all I knew, even from a little kid. Like, you're the kid that played all the sports, you were the athlete, and I lost that for a year, and the body came back a little bit, felt a little bit better, and was like, well, I'm going to give this another shot. And unfortunately for me, that I think I made that decision and told my agent so he could tell teams either, like, a couple days before or a couple days after COVID shut down the world. Ooh. So then I couldn't go on any visits. I had to find places to work out on my own because everything was shut down. So that was a tough process. So then I basically just did what I could until August, and I finally got a call from the Raiders and got into camp with, like, there was like 2 weeks left in camp, worked my way onto their practice squad, and then played 1 game with them before joining the Texans.
Fascinating. Which place was your favorite to play?
In the NFL?
Obviously, we're at the Chargers most of the time, but like.
Yeah, so because of what I just said, like I can't say I gave the Raiders and Texans didn't get a fair shot because it was COVID. I mean, we were meeting when I was with the Texans. They have a bubble similar to what NDSU used to have, but for the heat, not for the cold. And we were meeting the bubble. Like all of our position meetings, we were spread out on the field, essentially. Like someone would be in the corner, someone would be in the end zone, someone would be in the other corner, and then all the way down the sidelines. Like that was our meeting room, so we could spread out and not be close to each other. So I can't really say I didn't get to experience the full Texans experience, and it was same with the Raiders. I will say the Raiders had just opened up, so that was their first year in Vegas, so they just opened up a brand new facility. That was obviously incredible. So it's hard for me to say, honestly. I wouldn't say I had a bad experience anywhere. The Chargers was interesting in the fact that we moved cities. Not many people can say they're on a team that moved cities. So played in 2 different stadiums and had 2 different facilities to report to. But I didn't have a bad experience anywhere. So I guess I'd have to pick the Chargers because it was 4 years there. But tough to say. I was with the Raiders for such a short time. Same with the Texans.
Already, this is actually kind of a question that I was kind of wondering. How are those plane rides? Because I've been seeing especially
from what standpoint?
Like is it mostly like are you guys just so nervous or tired that you aren't even really doing anything, or the plane ride's always like a fun experience, or does it get annoying sometimes
on the way there or on the way back? I mean, so they're kind of different, right?
Yeah,
like they're always different. I guess I'll start with how we get to the plane. Like in the NFL is amazing. Like in college, yes, it was charter, but you still had to go through security. In the NFL, they'd come to the facility. So you do security at the facility, kind of fly through that, get on the bus, drive directly to the plane, literally get off the bus and walk up the stairs into the plane. So that part was amazing. I miss that now. Obviously, commercial flights are not like that. So, I mean, it's every team, every trip was slightly different. In the NFL, I mean, you'd see a lot of guys play cards. We would get per diem for traveling. You'd see guys go around flipping a coin literally for their per diem cash that they got, which was like $110 or whatever it was. So people would be going around making bets with that money.
Gambling in the air.
I don't know if you call it a bet. It's more literally a coin flip. It was typically a little quieter, I would say, on the way to, and then on the way back. That was the one difference for sure. Like Did I lose a game on the road? Yes, one. Northern Iowa. I was like, we only lost one game on the road, but I remember that plane ride being dead silent. NFL wasn't always like that, which was weird for me. Like, you lose a game, you think everyone's pissed off and no one's going to talk and no one's going to say anything. It wasn't always like that. Some guys were like that for sure, but I would say that part was definitely different, college to NFL.
How everybody just gets back in the good spirits, just go around.
I would say, a little bit quicker, yeah.
And then you have like some Kirko chains level stuff going on the planes.
Yeah, did you have anybody wear a ton of chains or anything? On your
No, we had no. I think I'm gonna say Kirk was unique in that one for sure. No doubt.
Interesting. All right.
Alrighty, so obviously you're doing something now for work. It's not like you can just coast the rest of your way. It probably would get pretty boring even if you could coast the rest of the way. So what kind of are you doing now, and kind of like for a job and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I did tried about, I don't want to say everything, but I tried a lot of different things out. I coached high school football, coached high school golf. I was a JV golf coach at Shanley for 2 years. The year in between my fourth and fifth years, I worked at a construction company part-time. I've done radio last year. I've done, you might know if you watch NDSU football, I could do the color commentary for WDAY for NDSU football games. Am I missing any other kind of part-time jobs that I've done? I think that covers most of them. So I kind of dabbled in a lot of different things, and then I went back to school actually. So the NFL's got a cool deal. I think it's up to like 5 years after you're done playing. you get X amount of dollars to go back. I mean, it could be anything. It could be for a master's. It could be for your undergrad, finish your undergrad, whatever. So I took advantage of that. Actually, currently still in it. Going to NDSU again for the second time.
He's back
for my MBA.
Are you getting the honor roll again, or?
I don't know how the honor roll works for the master's, but I'm doing all right so far. I got about three classes left, I think, until I'm done with that. But the reason I bring that up is because that kind of led to me being like, okay, you're right. Like I can't do part-time jobs forever. I'm sure I could, but like you want to find that next thing, that next career, whatever it is, full-time, and being in the MBA program kind of showed me that. Like my initial idea was I'll go to school again, I'll get this degree, and then I'll look for a job. And I realized like it's better to have experience, and so I started looking for jobs while I was in school. Long way to get to. I actually now work at Bobcat. So been awesome. Started there 7 months ago. It's cool that it's a North Dakota company, kind of invented an industry, right? In the compact track loader, sorry, I should say compact skid loader industry. So yeah, it's been great. Been there for 7 months and been enjoying it. So yeah, I'm just a regular guy now, working at Bobcat.
Blending in
after all those many years of glory, he's just a regular Jim.
That's right. That's right.
So like, what kind of department at Bobcats are you in then?
Yeah, I'm under. This is funny. It's kind of hard to explain what I do sometimes. We're a new team, so we're under the product management team. Under that team is a customer insights team, so they go out, interview customers, find out what they like about a product, what they don't like, do all the market research. And then we are kind of under that umbrella. So my team's a product value team. We're kind of internal. I described it as like an internal marketer. Like we try to create messaging around whether it's something new that we're coming out with, whether it's a change we made to a product, whether it's just products in general. Try to come up with messaging on what's the benefit of this, of whatever it is, the feature or a machine or whatever. What's the benefit, and how does that help a customer get more done or save money or work faster or whatever it is, and then kind of use that message to spread throughout the company, right? So it's not, I don't deal with people externally, mostly working internally with marketing, sales, training, and trying to get that consistent message across. So that's the best way I can describe it. It's different day to day, but yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, like when I'm working, sometimes I can be a janitor or a salesman. Who knows what's going on?
Exactly.
Keeps it fresh. So you mentioned that you're a color commentator. So John and I was out all last season because of an injury, tore my ACL.
Yeah, he tore his
ACL.
ACL.
I was the play-by-play. He was color commentator for Davies last year, which is
nice,
pretty fun. What are like the biggest challenges for like commentating for NDSU football?
Good question. I think the biggest challenge, it's nice for me, like I don't know how like a Kirk Herbstreit does it, because he's calling like 2 different games a week and it's always different team. Well, typically it's going to be different teams. I have the advantage of I know one team's always going to be NDSU, right? So I can nail down that team really well. I know the players. I kind of know what they like to do. To me, it's always the preparation for the other team. And especially now with the transfer portal and the COVID year, it's like, is this guy a 6th-year senior? Is he a 4th-year senior? Is he going to be back next year? Like, or what school did he come from? Like, there's so much prep work that kind of goes on behind the scenes to try and figure out, okay, obviously who are their players, and get those down as best you can. It's impossible to memorize, all 50 that might see the field, but memorize as many as you can. But then also, like, who are their key guys? What did they do last year? What do they like to, like, offensively? Can you take something away from the film, like maybe a philosophy? Or can I, doing my best watching like YouTube videos or whatever I can find, like, can I take away a tendency that they like to do and trying to anything I can do to try and show the viewer something that they wouldn't probably know on their own, right? And so that's kind of the challenge, is just learning the opponent. Like I said, you kind of know what NDSU, you know what they did last week. You called that game, like, you know about NDSU. What can you find out about the other opponent in a week's time?
Would you say that's helped you since like stepping away from playing football, like watching film type of like YouTube videos, like you said? Would you say it kind of help you not kind of miss football as much?
Fill
in
the
a way?
void.
No, yeah, you're spot on, without a doubt. I actually started doing pregame shows before I was a color commentator that year that I wasn't playing, and it kind of came out of nowhere. I had no idea that's what I was going to do or wanted to do, but it was a way that wasn't coaching, even though I did end up coaching high school football, but like wasn't coaching, wasn't playing, wasn't directly involved with a team, but it allowed me to stay around football, to stay around a program that I obviously is very near and dear to my heart in North Dakota State, and still kind of dive into the nitty gritty of football, not just sit back and watch it as a casual fan, which I do enjoy doing as well. And it was, as you mentioned, it was a new challenge. I had never done it. I didn't go to school to be a broadcaster. I experienced in the media in terms of, doing things like this and doing interviews and working at radio a little bit, but being a color commentator, I didn't know anything about it other than watching football. And there's all these little things about, like, I didn't realize, like, you don't want to step on someone's call. I didn't even know what that meant. Like, the play-by-play guy, that's his job. Like, when there's a big play, someone did it, I think it was the Super Bowl, it might have been Romo, and he starts talking like in the middle of the play. Maybe it wasn't Romo, it might have been someone else, but it's just like little things like that, like as a color commentator, that you learn the more and more you do it. And I had no idea about any of it, so it's been fun. It's always a challenge too, you want to describe the game in a way that someone who knows the game really well can still take something from it, but not so complicated that someone who maybe is just a casual fan has no idea what you're talking about. And I'm not saying I do a perfect job of that, but that's kind of the challenge of finding that balance of describing what happened and maybe how it happened, but not in so much depth that you lose some people.
Yeah. This guy was in a disguise, cover 4 here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. What would you say is some of your favorite ways to spend your free time? Those hobbies. When you're not doing anything, how are we kicking back, relaxing? Are we golfing or?
Yeah. You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah. I mean, I still, I guess, like in terms of not playing a sport or like a recreational sport, like I love going to the lake when I can in the summer with friends. I still kick back and play Xbox every now and then.
That's what we like to hear.
It feels weird being, in your 30s and you're still playing Xbox, but here I am. So
talking trash.
Yeah,
I don't do that.
He's trash talking on Call of Duty now.
I don't do that, but yeah, for me, it's the answer is easy. It's golf. That kind of, you talk about filling a void of like being done with football, like that filled my competition void, I would say, and it's because it's not necessarily because I'm competing against other people. It was like that inner competition of trying to get better in a game that seems like is impossible to get better at sometimes. So that's been kind of the thing that I've dove into. Love playing golf whenever I can. Unfortunately, it is a time-consuming sport that is sometimes hard to get out and play. So I definitely don't play as much as I wish I could, but I take every opportunity that I can.
Yeah, thankfully. I love golf as well. Kind of just started like a couple of years ago or whatever, but we go out at the lake. We have a membership, and the golf course happens to be about 20 steps away, so it's pretty nice. We got our own golf cart there, so I play like twice a weekend.
It's one of those sports
relaxing.
that everyone, when they get to my age or older, they're like, I wish I played it more when I was young. And it's like, yeah, I feel the same way. So, yeah, it's the only sport that you can play until you're 70 years old. So,
John Daly still playing,
Exactly.
still going.
Until you throw your back out.
All right, what are your thoughts on NDSU this season? What's your deep dive thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually just, kind of looking through the roster and seeing, like, going back to that COVID year, like, okay, who's coming back again? And then and trying to familiarize myself again with the roster. But, like, I got to start with Coach Polasek, and obviously super excited for him. He's a guy that sat in my parents' kitchen and was one of the guys that helped recruit me to NDSU. I just think, and I love Coach Entz. He was my defensive coordinator my senior year, and he did a phenomenal job. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, but like Polasek is going to bring a different energy than Coach Entz did. And whether that's good or bad, I guess we'll find out. But obviously, from my experience and playing for Coach Polasek, like he's just a guy it's hard not to to play hard for. It's hard not to buy into what he's saying because he's so passionate. And I know you guys have probably heard this from everyone else that you've talked to. Like, his energy is just contagious. It's infectious. I think you're seeing that already with the amount of guys that stayed. I know they lost a few. I mean, Eli Green notably, but like to the transfer portal. But like, I think people thought it was going to be a mass exodus, and the fact that it wasn't, I think, kind of confirms that about Coach Polasek and his energy and his charisma and what he brings to the table. So I'm super excited for him, for his opportunity. Can't wait to see what it looks like on the field. That's the part that's, going back to color commentary, like, is it going to be, how much different is it going to be offensively? He was kind of the guy that I feel like kind of introduced some more of the quarterback run game when he came back in 2014. Not that it wasn't there before that, but just some different wrinkles. So he obviously loves to run the football as coach running back. So I'm very intrigued to see what the offense looks like and how much different it is, obviously, with Cam Millard, Cole Payton back. A lot of good receivers still in the room. Some of them are young and unproven, but some good running backs back. Like, the offense should be just fine, and I'm excited to see that. And then, for me personally, speaking of teammates that I love to play with, one that I forgot was Grant Olson, who is to this day a very good friend of mine. I'm super excited to see him take over and get that shot at defensive coordinator, and see what he does as well. You would think it'd be similar, a guy that grew up in this system, but he's been different places. He's seen a lot of football. He was one of the smartest guys I played with, and just to see, is this defense, I don't want to say back. It's not like this defense has been bad, but like, is this defense dominant again? And what does that look like? They obviously have a lot of pieces back. Some really good guys. Cole Wisniewski stayed, Logan Cobb stayed. I mean, Eli Most, like, there's pieces there. So I guess to me, like, there's no reason they shouldn't at least be back. And I'm not really in the prediction world, but like, if I had, like, there's no reason they should not be at least back to where they were last year in the semifinals, with a great chance to go to Frisco once again. And obviously, I'm sure their goals are much higher than that.
Yeah. Cole Wisniewski, I'm glad to have him back. He's going to be an NFL player for sure. What a player. Because he switches from linebacker to safety, and he's just, six interceptions?
No hiccup there. I mean, it was – I still remember that first game against Eastern Washington, and you're like, all right, safety, that was a question mark, right, going into 2023. And I think maybe it was Sam Young. Sam Young got thrown at like one of the first plays, and he had like a PBU, and then I believe Wisniewski had a pick in that game too. And it's like, okay, well, I guess the safety room is going to be just fine. I mean, the transition was about as smooth as it could get.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this year. Optimistic, of course. But now it's time for us to dive into our little segments and kind of wrap this up a little bit. So I have Today in History and Shower Thought of the Week. I think that's always interesting. And John has Food of the Week and Quote of the Week. So typically I like to start out. So Today in History, big history guy here. So I'm going a little positive today. Typically, I feel like all the history stuff is pretty negative. So July 23rd, 1777, France agrees to assist the United States in the Revolutionary War by providing munition, which is just a fancy word of saying ammunition, own weapons. This helps the U.S. defeat Britain, and that's when we got free. July 23rd, 1996, the Magnificent Seven took home Olympic gold in team gymnastics for the U.S., which was the first time in Olympic history for U.S. women's gymnastics, which is pretty fitting because the Olympics right around the corner here.
Speaking of the Olympics, are you a big watcher of the Olympics?
Yeah, I would say more as a kid, but I definitely try and catch everything I can. Yeah, no doubt.
All right, John, Food of the Week.
Alrighty, today's Food of the Week is going to be Rice Krispie treats, and not little wrapper ones, but homemade ones.
Okay.
Would you say you're a sweet tooth type of guy, or do you like
Yes.
salty foods, sweets?
I like all foods typically, but yes, I have a big sweet tooth. My wife could attest to that for sure. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So my shower thought of the week is pretty interesting. So if you think about it, dancers took 5, 6, 7, 8 because musicians took 1, 2, 3, 4. Think about it.
Levi's really always trying to dig deep with those. Alrighty, and I always like to end us off with a good quote of the week. This one is from David Hare. Weak minds sink under prosperity as well as adversity. but strong and deep ones have two high tides.
Whoa. Are you a big quote guy? Gets you really hyped for the games.
I think the longer I played and the more you see it, like it starts to lose its effect a little bit. But I can always appreciate a good quote for sure.
All right. Well, that's been the podcast. Thanks for coming on, of course. Do you have any questions for us?
We always like to ask.
Yeah,
yeah. Do I get to interview you guys? So, okay. I wanted to ask a little follow-up because you asked me about, color commentator. Like, so you guys got to do that last year. What games were you calling? And what was the experience like?
So we called all the Davies home games
Okay.
for all varsity and most of JV.
Yeah, we did some JV kind of like because get a little used to it before the first varsity game and then just kind of some practice.
So, yeah, the experience is high school. It's not as
yeah,
easy
it's not
to,
as that high of
prepare.
level. Like you guys probably have thousands upon thousands watching you at WDAY. We have, I think our peak would be like 600 at concurrent, but it's still something.
Not bad.
Yeah, you can't really prepare obviously because there's not as much stuff out about like the players or something.
Yeah, it's hard to find players.
Did you have a touchdown phrase or tagline? Whatever they might be.
So for me, I had a couple I would say that are pretty good, like giving her the onion.
Okay.
Up the middle.
Yep.
So I always asked, my dad's side, big farmer side, so they always got some good phrases. I'd ask people what type of what quotes they would want me to fit into the game to give me a good challenge.
Yeah, a little buzzword. Yeah, keywords you got to fit in. I like that.
So
what was the best one?
The best one?
Do you remember? That you actually used.
I feel like there's definitely a couple. I'm not really sure the best one. What would you consider? What would you say? What's your definition of best?
So the one that everyone always thinks about. I'm sure you saw the clip. The guy that just completely blew his hit on news, sport, whatever, the nightly news, but then he goes and boom goes a dynamite, and everyone remembers that boom goes a dynamite. I don't know if you've seen that clip. If you haven't, you need to watch it. Probably you guys were 8 years old when it happened, but. That's kind of so it could be funny, it could be just the fact that it was hard to work into the broadcast, but you got it anyway.
My sister, of course, big Swift fan, so I had to sneak in a couple Taylor Swift ex Travis Kelce quotes in there, but there's one that I remember. Zach Lilly was one of our running backs last year, senior running back, amazing running back, and he would just keep moving the legs, really, he just keep churning. So I think I was saying, keeps churning away and he's loose, and I don't know, he just magically disappeared in the line, and all of a sudden out of nowhere 40-yard touchdown. So the vibes were pretty high. We were kind of going crazy, but
and then we have games where it was just full house.
We didn't hide our emotions. It was
the
pretty
entire
fun.
game, full house formation, the entire game. That got very boring to try to find stuff to talk about.
For Davies, or was that
so
for Cheyenne? Cheyenne used to run something similar.
Throughout the year, I don't even know how we did this. Davies started the year in kind of I don't even know how to explain the offense. We were kind of option style, a lot of triple option, and threw the ball quite a bit, but we kind of just adjusted in the middle of the year out of nowhere to the full house. And I heard some rumblings because at practice, a few days before the game, that they were going to start, because we practiced a couple formations full house because goal line plays, but I didn't realize we were going to start playing or doing full house the whole game. And all of a sudden some of my friends were telling me that we were going to do it this week, so we were talking about it before the game, and we ended up changing our offense completely to the full house formation is what we call it, or it's kind of different for everybody, but that got to be a little boring because it was just run up the middle. Everything looks the exact same, which is obviously the beauty of the formation, but also as a commentator, it gets hard.
It's the worst. Right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
And he's running up the middle again.
Because there was absolutely no variation. They did not once deviate the entire game. It was
they take all they take all your ammo for what you're gonna say about that formation or that play in like 3 plays, and you're like, okay, well, I got to keep talking. Try calling I'm sure you called a couple blowouts. That can get
oh yeah.
Yeah,
that can get tough too, because there's no reason to break down a 3-yard run when the score's 45-2. You know, it's like there's really
Look at this run here, folks. You know, let's dive into that.
But that's what made it more fun. We were kind of just, we knew this was probably our only year. I mean,
unless
I hope I
Levi
don't
gets
get injured again, but
I hope he does.
because he wants to do it again. But we'd kind of just have fun and create some comedy along with it. So we'd get overly excited if it was a blowout and they'd get like first down or something.
Okay.
Then we kind of just try to switch it up or something, or they finally scored. You know, it only took them 3.5 quarters, but yeah.
All right, my last question for you. I'm sure we're over time here, but so since I used to coach at Shanley high school football here in North Dakota. And you guys obviously followed it a year ago. Do you have what do you feel? Who do you feel is gonna maybe win it all this year? Or what's the landscape of North Dakota high school football gonna look like this year?
With me back playing, it's going to be Davies for sure.
I suppose, yeah. But okay, take Davies out of it, then we'll.
Well, too, as well, it kind of depends. The rumors if Mason Clabo is going to come back for us,
of course, obviously,
because that was a big one.
He was our quarterback for. Have you heard of Mason Clabo? I don't know. I feel like everybody kind of has around here.
If not for basketball.
Yeah, he was our quarterback freshman, sophomore year. Then he had an injury junior year, and he didn't come back after that. And he was planning on playing just basketball or maybe track as well. Obviously that, but for other teams, there's rumors saying Shanley's not going to be as good this year just because I think they're losing some key players at like maybe quarterback, wide receiver, obviously. Cheyenne. I mean, they're the biggest school, so they will probably have a lot of talent on their team. I'm not totally sure. Minot, they're always the magicians. They're always good. But all I know is that we're coming.
All right.
We're going to be there.
I
love our team this year. Should be a really fun year.
Cool.
But, yeah.
The vibes are high. Kind of like this outro. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was a great episode. Thank you, Kyle, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Much appreciated. And, as they say, keep her between the ditches. Later.